faith. Have faith. Believe in your source. Have faith. Have faith. Have faith. Believe in your source. Have faith.
So hopefully you guys don't have to listen to my dog barking in the background. I'm getting a look at this thing and I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. The tie rods that I thought for sure were going to need to get replaced are actually rock solid, and they look like they've already been replaced at one point. So that's really good news. Looking at the ball joints though, for sure these things are OEM. You can tell because the upper arm has like completely dry rotted bushings. So I'm going to assume that these are OEM control arms. Which is fine because that was always the plan anyways, but the pleasant surprise is that the tie rods are actually okay. And looking at how bad the bushings are on this thing, especially the lower bushing, tells me that that could be part of where some of this slop is coming in. So my control arms are kind of doing whatever they want. They're definitely moving around, and yeah, between the actual shocks being completely blown, the bushings being gone is not a good sign either. So between all of that, it makes sense why this thing would like tuck the tire like it was bagged or something when you take a corner. So we're going to continue with the original plan of tearing out the control arms, and we're going to rebuild these suckers. Also, another thing I noticed is that the sway bar has what looks like new bushings. Is a new sway bar end link, and then the inner bushings look like they're okay. They look like they've been replaced. So that is really good news. It looks like this might not be quite as much drama as originally anticipated. So let's get these control arms out and let's start rebuilding them. So I got this thing apart now, and so apparently these upper mounts, it's a bracket. So this thing's a bracket that the upper control arms bolt to. They're known to rust out apparently, and this is something I wasn't actually aware of. It's a pretty well-known issue. And mine is so rotten that it has holes in it. So there's a couple brands, UMI is one of them, BMR is another, and they actually make a replacement mount. And what's super cool about those, like this is actually one of those times where if you do something, you do any spirited driving, especially anything competitive, this is really an opportunity to get a component that's going to improve the geometry of the car. Now, if you're just looking to I don't know, keep it fairly OEM and you're not worried about anything beyond like occasional spirited driving, say a curvy road or something like that, you could probably source some more OEM ones that are used and just have them sandblasted and powder coated. Or even just sandblast them and just put on some kind of like a chassis paint or something like that, and they'll be fine. But in my case, this is a really good opportunity to upgrade these things for the suspension components that are going to be going into it. Oh, and here's the best part about it. They have multiple mounting locations for the upper control arms that will sort of change its location. So you've got, you know, your factory location here on the side, and these brackets are shaped differently on the aftermarket ones. They allow that control arm to be fixed in a different position. And what that does is that changes your suspension geometry. And the result is that you can switch the location of that thing and actually increase your camber gain over the movement of the suspension. So this is something cool. I'm excited to kind of play around with it. So this will delay getting this thing back together a little bit, but I'm gonna get a set of upper control arm brackets ordered up ASAP here. We'll obviously install that in this video, but and then I'd say let's unbolt this thing and start rebuilding the upper control arms while we wait for the parts to come in. Nice, we got it. All right, so looking over the control arms, they could be in worse shape. They're not, the control arms themselves are solid. I don't see any damage to anything. There isn't really hardly any rust on them, which is kind of crazy considering how bad those upper control arm brackets are. But where it's really not good is the bushings. The bushings are completely dry rotted. They are like with the front bushing, it's actually starting to like push out. So it's so dry rotted and so oblong and crappy that they're actually like pushing out from the bushing itself. So for sure, this was a good decision to pluck these guys out and get them rebuilt. Of all the slop that was in the suspension, we've got a strong chance that this is a source of some of it. Ball joints themselves, they aren't horrible. There's no movement really. They could probably survive a little bit longer, but since I've got everything out, let's just completely refresh these things. So I'm gonna go about getting the bushings out first here, and then we'll worry about the ball joint after, and then start cleaning them up and making them look a little better. But first, I'm gonna show you guys how I go about removing bushings without torching them, because I think that's disgusting and don't want to give myself cancer any sooner than I would. So all right, let's tear these things apart. These guys were stuck. Yeah, that's not gonna budge.
Hard no, hard no. Hard no.
Nothing better than like listening to something you enjoy in the garage while you're working on stuff. I'm a big Mighty Car Mods fan, and watching them put a turbo on a Camry. Something that's relevant to that is that Mighty Car Mods has a lot of supporters for their channel, and I am proud to remind all of you, this is, they've been a supporter of the channel for a while now. Super Clean, a pretty major like automotive and household cleaning brand. So what they do is they make chemicals that are for degreasing things. They've got window cleaner, they've got floor dry, they've got a bunch of different products that are all kind of centered around cleaning and maintaining your garage and working on cars and your house and stuff like that. And they've been a supporter of the channel for a while now, which is awesome. So today we're going to be using them for doing a little bit of cleaning on our lower control arms as well as our upper control arms, just to scrub them down and get some of that grease and oil off so that I can slap some paint on these things once they're final assembled. So support the brands that support your favorite YouTube channels. So let's get out there, let's get scrubbing on these things and see how well this works out, because they are nasty, these control arms.
Later.
All right, let's talk about the bushing situation. So there is a lot of different schools of thought when it comes to replacing bushings on your vehicle. Some people replace them with actual solid, like aluminum bushings. Some people replace them with poly, and some people replace them with rubber. And there's trade-offs with each one of these options that you can run. Now, in high-performance applications, a solid control arm bushing is obviously going to give you absolutely no play. And I guess I have no experience with something like that, but I did recently see that there is actually a brand, I think it's Midwest Chassis, that makes them for the Fbody. That's a hard no from me. I don't know that I can go to that extreme, although I do have Delrin in the lower control arms on my 1950 Ford, which is probably not super different because Delrin is actually stiffer than like a poly is. A poly actually has some give to it. Delrin's basically a self-lubricating plastic that is real hard. So they might be about the same. I don't know. Anyway, point is, I'm not doing that with this one. My research showed me that it's not uncommon for these cars to end up with some binding issues just because of the way that the suspension articulates on these lower control arms. So I'm going to be kind of mixing and matching here. So what I did was I ordered up some bushings. Moog makes them, but this is what O'Reilly's had in stock. O'Reilly's is another brand that I've worked with in the past. So they are my go-to, and my dude Alan down there, he's the manager down at our local O'Reilly's. He's the best. So always got to shop there. So he ordered up some rubber bushings for me. Now, I am actually going to be mixing the two of these here. So I have rubber bushings that are going to go into the lower control arm position. That was loud. I also have poly bushings. Originally bought these poly bushings and didn't realize that it's not uncommon to have binding issues in the lower control arms. I would have considered actually running them still and just kind of see how it works out, but there is a huge issue that's going to plague anybody who is anywhere near the rust belt or had a car that's been anywhere near the rust belt, and it is that this kit requires the reusing of all of your washers and all of the pins that are inside of the rubber bushings. Well, what everybody knows is that the lower control arm rearward, is that the word I'm looking for? The rearmost bushing, they seize up in these things. The bolts get stuck inside of them, and then you are just SOL. You're not getting those things out. And it sucks because if you're supposed to reuse these components, you actually have to cut them to get them out, and then obviously the bolt is stuck inside of it. I decided, based on that issue that I ran into, as well as the potential for there being some binding down there, that I'm going to run rubber in the lower control arm and poly in the upper. The lower control arm is most likely under more stress than the upper control arm is. The upper control arm is obviously very important, but I don't think it's going to see the same kind of forces that the lower is going to. And there's a good chance down the road I'll be upgrading to some kind of a tubular lower control arm anyways. So when I do that, you basically can't get them in rubber. If you're going with like UMI or Midwest chassis or Heights, all of them have either like spherical rod ends, like a pillow ball type setup, or they have Delrin, or they have poly. I've never seen a rubber bushing in any of those. So we're gonna start tearing down the upper control arms, and maybe my new upper control arm brackets are actually in the mailbox right now, so I'm gonna have to run and check that out. But now's the time for us to tear this down and to start the rebuilding process. So let's tear this apart. Okay, so passenger side, because we know that it's completely rotten. We'll worry about the ball joint last. Very simple. That's literally just grinding off the tops of these rivets. That's nice and simple. The bushings on these. So there's a couple different ways that you can do it. One of the easiest is to actually take and drill a bunch of holes through the rubber. And by drilling those holes through there, it'll obviously remove material, and then it'll kind of help loosen things up a little bit so that they can be pressed out pretty simply. All right, let's clamp her down. Alright guys, so it's time to assemble the lower control arms. Here we go. Apparently I'm going to have to clean it off again. I did not go all out with sandblasting it. I basically knocked off a lot of the scale off the top of it, cleaned off a lot of basically a lot of the scale that the Super Clean just simply can't get because it's literally corrosion on steel. But the Super Clean did a hell of a job of getting the gunk and the grime off of it, which is exactly what it's made to do. So now I can start putting this thing together and shoving the bushings in here and kind of fighting that battle. And it's a battle. This is not a super easy control arm to replace bushings in. It's not horrible, but it's not great, and it works better when you've got tools that will cooperate with the process. It's absolutely a must to have a ball joint kit, so like the ball joint install kit, removal kit. It's basically a gigantic C-clamp like this, and that works wonders for getting things out and putting the bushings back in. But in my case, I'm going to use a combination of things. You can probably use the ball joint press for the whole thing, but I'm going to use my, I've got a Harbor Freight, like 12 ton, 20 ton, one of those. Yeah, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with this back one, and this back one where you've got an opening here is particularly problematic on these. They are particularly problematic because they are open in a section, and that section wants to try and collapse while you're pushing the bushing in. So, let's grab our bushings. This is our guy. It's actually stepped, which is kind of nice. And it slides in like that. Now, the same problem that plagued us with removal is you've got this arm that sticks up right here. So it makes it really hard when it comes to the C-clamp if you want to do kind of a reversal of it. Meaning, like, if you need to have this side over here, it's just not possible. The C-clamp has to go like this with the big threaded arm on the bottom. So here's what you're going to do. Pop the front of it out. It's very simple. You can basically just take a punch, slide it in through here, tap her on the outer edge. She'll pop right out. Then, what I did was I picked up a 7/8 inch inner diameter washer, which fits almost perfectly in here. And what that does is it gives your C-clamp a really nice spot to actually press down on. I went and I picked up 2-inch black pipe, so like plumbing piping. And what that is it's a 2-inch inner diameter. Technically it's like 2 1/8 or 2 1/16 or so. This lip right here is 2 inches on the outer dimension of it. So it works really nice to have something as close as possible to that size that you can slide over, and it won't allow it to move a whole lot, which is really what's going to try and happen on this one, because the fact that this backside is open here, it's going to want to try and compress on you. So you just slide your bushing in. You're going to grab one of these from your C-clamp kit. This is the one that's got the little groove in it, the indent, that's going to stick on the threaded portion. That's going to go on this side, and it's going to just compress against this piece of pipe that you have. And then on the other side, it's just going to basically push against the washer. And what's nice about this is you can see it's got this deep step in the bushing. And this is going to compress a little bit of that rubber, but it's not going to damage it. It actually compresses nice because it pushes against this lip. And it's enough that you can really put some pressure on it, and it's not going to deform. So, we'll toss this in here. It is a good idea to kind of clamp this guy down as well. So I'll grab my big boy C-clamp. That'll help keep it from moving too much. All right, our bushing's in there. Washer. Actually, I'm gonna move that camera over here so you guys can really see. There. Don't want to have the camera too close because I don't want the thing getting like bumped or knocked over. Okay, so washer is gonna go on this end, just like that. Slide it in. Something to remember is this does not push all the way in, and this lip is not meant to actually touch against this part of the control arm 100%. It actually leaves about 1/8 of an inch gap between it. So, it can be a lot of juggling on this part. It's really can be pretty frustrating, so, you know, be warned. I like to have the clamp pressing against this because it's also going to want to pull it inward. So it's pulling it, you know, sort of this way, outward, inward, however you want to explain that, away from the opening on the backside of this thing, the backside of the control arm. And then just watch it really closely and see what happens. Don't be surprised if it tries to compress. GM really should have closed that backside. It'll start to go. Okay. Back this off and look at it. Yep, I'd say that came out pretty good, and it looks like it's about where it's supposed to be. Yeah. Yeah, that went in there pretty good. Yep. Then, put your washer back in. There you go. Alright, now this one's a little silly. No idea why they chose to have it go in this way, but that's how GM wants it done. Okay. Yep, there we go. Now it's starting to touch the bottom there. Now you need somewhere for the bushing to go. Looks good. Alright, so it turned out pretty good. So now we're going to talk about ball joints. So we're going to do a little game of show and tell here. Set this aside. Show you guys what I am using. What we have here, the original ball joint, and I decided to go with Moog because Moog is kind of one of those tried and true brands. They've been around forever. They're seen as pretty damn good quality. So that's what I decided to go with. There's a million different options, a lot of which are much cheaper, And then there's a few that are even better than these. But Moog is, in my experience, a pretty trusted brand. And you can see just how meaty these things are. Very beefy. The way that it captures the joint itself is just, I don't know, it's huge. It's very bulky. And then the best part is that they have a greasable zerk on the bottom of them, unlike the factory ball joints, which do not. That's everything for the ball joint, I think. So now I'm going to install this one into these control arms, and then we'll mask the important parts off, and then we'll squirt some paint on them and let that cure, and then we'll reinstall everything. So let's do this.